Welcome to Dear Texas Radio, where we encourage Texans to drop everything and read. Your hostess for today's show is Denise Bryson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to Dear Texas Radio Show, where we always encourage Texans to drop everything and read. I am your host, Denise Bryson, and today I'm excited about interviewing Kenner Sosa, the author of Kinder Transport, a Child's Journey, and Ray Antonio and Ray Feo, and also 101 Mexico City Travel Tips. Hi, Kenner. How are you?
Hi, Denise. I'm great. How are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. It's just I'm so excited to interview you today. And you're a children's writer, right? Children's author.
Yes, I have authored, as you spoke of, the Mexico City Travel Tips book, and I've done a lot of travel writing. But my love is with children's literature. I work with children. I'm a librarian during the day, and that's the direction I've always wanted to go in. So I'm so thrilled that I'm finally able to go down that path.
Yes. And could you tell us a little more about yourself? I saw that you're a school librarian, and you just said that. Could you tell us a little more about yourself and what made you have such a love for the cultural type of books and children's books that you're writing?
Oh, well, yes, I am a school librarian out of Dallas, Texas. Actually, I'm about to start my 10th year as a Dallas librarian. Which honestly has just been a dream. I started as a teacher, and I realized that there was something a little along the line of teaching and a little along the line of being a writer I wanted to do, and those two worlds just combined perfectly in the job that I'm at. I've been writing for many, many years, not always with children's literature, but when I started to read more and more of it, I just became enamored with the creativity, the freedom, the lax rules of what you could do and what plot twists you could use, and just the entire scope of the imagination that you can utilize when you write children's literature. So that's kind of how I got involved into it for the love of writing itself. I am an avid traveler, so I started with travel writing, and I think that kind of the traveling and then the experiences I've had living abroad really just instilled in me the need to share cultural experiences. And what I've noticed as a librarian, too, is that we don't have the amount of diversity that we need in children's literature to accurately reflect our audience. So I really try to kind of push multiculturalism in some of the work and the diversity and just characters that have shown resilience and the beauty in our differences.
Yeah, because I know you told me earlier that you were on the road now. So is that something, or is this something was going to be a part of one of your projects? Because I know you have a new book coming out soon. But is your travel right now, is that something that you're going to incorporate into one of your books?
Oh, well, I could. It's actually unrelated. I'm helping a friend out with a job up in Chicago. So since I love to be on the road, we are on the road now approaching that event. But now you're giving me ideas. I might have to write about it. The new book actually is completely unrelated. It spurred from a conversation I was having with my son, who was 6 at the time, and he asked me what would happen if you hugged a porcupine.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, I don't know. And we started to just, have some dialogue back and forth, just some whimsical, silly dialogue out of it, and I started to think more and more about that idea. Like, what would you do if you wanted to hug somebody you couldn't hug? And that was the birth of the new book called Unlovable. Well, we're still twiddling the different titles back and forth, but it's due out early October, and I feel like this is really going to be the one that's most close to my heart.
Oh, wow. That's going to be good. Well, let's talk about Helen and Kinder Transport and her journey as a child and all the things that happened. I guess she was a part of in the Holocaust era. And so, just could you tell us a little bit about Helen and what inspired you to write this book as well? This is down during the outbreak of World War II.
Yes.
And the Jewish families. Could you talk about that book, please?
Sure. Well, Kinder Transport came from an idea. I'd watched a documentary on Netflix about the Kinder Transport itself, and I was floored that I had never heard of this because I love history and I just love studying about different places, different times, and I couldn't believe that in all the things I'd read, I'd never heard of this before. So I just delved in, and I needed to know more. And I was so curious about it, so interested, and I thought, this is such a hopeful, genuinely humanitarian story that it needs to be shared. So I applied for the Billy Levy Travel and Research Grant to the University of Connecticut with the purpose of learning more about the Kinder Transport and writing a picture book. So I was very, very fortunate that they chose my proposal, and so I went to the University of Connecticut several years ago, and I was very lucky because the coordinator of the program there, she actually had ties to some people who were actual Kinder Transport survivors. So I was able to interview 3 of them by phone. The oral histories of those interviews are still at the Dodd Research Center, so they can be listened to there. And I took details from their perspective because, you know, learning about it as an adult, we're seeing it through adult eyes. But hearing about it from them, I could really feel how a child perceives the different things that were going on, the different sights, the different smells, what a child would be fearful of that would be different than what an adult would be thinking of at that moment. And so all of those little details are, you know, details that I put into the book. Helen herself, of course, is a fictional character, but she was based on the 3 people that I interviewed. Helen being my grandmother's name, so that's why I chose that. So I really feel it represents hope. Every person that I interviewed, despite the fear that they went through, the uncertainty of their future, despite the discrimination and the social injustices that they were suffering, felt like that trip, that journey really saved their lives, and they were grateful for it. Instead of being bitter and you know, hurt, which I'm sure they felt as well about what they went through, they were so grateful for their lives based on being able to get onto the Kinder Transport. And it was thanks to some people who just knew, despite the risks, they were going to fight for what was right, and they were going to help these children. And that was really the basis for where the story came out. I mentioned it was originally a picture book, and I really had a hard time getting publishers to take a good look at it as a picture book, just as a picture book in itself because of the subject matter. So I rewrote it later as a middle grade chapter book, but, you know, in a way I'm glad because I think it's just so much richer this way.
Yeah, it sounds like a very, was a part of history as well as just such a great story. And even though you kind of, you know, wrote it in fictional, but it's kind of non-fictional, but kind of wrote it in a fictional, from a fictional view. I mean, it's just, I mean, to me, I was like, my God, because I had never heard of that myself either. And I've, you know, kind of done some research on the Holocaust, and even, you know, been to the Holocaust Museum and just learned some things from that perspective. But to know about this is something totally different. And now we want to talk briefly, and then we're going to take a break in about 4 minutes. But what about Ray, Antonio, and Ray Feo? Let's talk about them and their journey to San Antonio.
Well, that was my first book. It came out in 2015, and that story really is not completely autobiographical, of course, but it's semi-autobiographical because I grew up in San Antonio, and you know, my dad worked a lot. We didn't get to spend a lot of free, just fun time with him. But one of my best memories of our time with my dad was every year at San Antonio Fiesta, we would get to watch the river parade from the balcony of his boss's office. And it was just this special thing we got to do with him every year. And I just knew I wanted to write a story about it. And as far as I know, even up to today, there's not another children's book about San Antonio Fiesta. So I had to be a little creative with it because Fiesta actually takes 10 days. It's celebrated over a week and a half, and you know, I couldn't do a picture book lasting week and a half. And the 2 story characters, Ray Antonio is literally the key of the city. He gets a key to the city every year. They choose a community member to get that honor. and Ray Feo is the one the people are voting for and applauding as somebody that they love. So they're two main characters in Fiesta itself, and I kind of wanted just a child's perspective, because Feo in Spanish means ugly, and so I was thinking, well, who would want to be the ugly king? And that kind of brought about the question, and then I thought about my sons at home. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old right now, and the things that they argue about are sometimes some of the most funny, silly, trivial things that you would, go to war with your brother about. And so that's kind of what's going on with this. It's the sibling rivalry of who gets to be a king of the city, told through the backdrop of the different events of Fiesta. And I just love what the illustrator did with it, because it's very colorful and it looks just like San Antonio. You open it up and it just makes me feel very nostalgic for home.
Wow.
It's also a bilingual book. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it's full in English and Spanish too.
Yeah. And you know several languages. How many languages do you know? I know you know Japanese and as well as
Yes, I'm a bilingual librarian, so I use English and Spanish at work. I used to be very good at Japanese. However, it's been 20 years since I've lived there, so unfortunately I haven't kept up with it quite as well. But I can still have a conversation, and I try to keep up with cultural ties. Like I volunteer with Japan American Society sometimes, and I play with a taiko group. So every Sunday when we have practice, I'm still practicing my Japanese as much as I can, trying to keep it up.
Well, that's good. We're going to, what we're going to do now is we're going to take a break, and we're going to hear from our wonderful sponsors, and then we will be right back with Kenna Sosa.
Thank you.
In their 2017 award-winning techno-thriller series, Brakefield and Berkey take you on an engaging journey as cyber good guys duel against cyber assassins using technology, today's weapon of choice. Whether your cyber threat is fighting for your lost identity, struggling with a mutant computer virus, or being outmaneuvered by a digitally enhanced gaming avatar, you will enjoy this book series individually and collectively. EnigmaSeries.com will take you through a doorway into the digital combat of the 21st century.
Dear Texas would like to thank our sponsors, EBG 247, where you can find ebooks galore 24 hours, 7 days a week at ebg247.com. Wimberley Valley Tourism welcomes people to explore the many fine shops, restaurants, and wineries that make Wimberley special. More at wvtla.com. McKinney, Texas's quaint downtown square, rich in history, entices visitors to discover its more than 100 eclectic shops and eateries. With origins dating back to 1848, McKinney is situated just 30 miles north of Dallas and 40 miles south of the Oklahoma border. One of the country's fastest-growing cities, McKinney maintains its authentic small-town atmosphere, which is palpable when exploring the downtown streets, taking a walk on one of the city's many nature trails, or even visiting the city's Croatian-style village. Learn more about what awaits you in this picturesque North Texas city at www.visitmckinney.com or call 888-649-8499. Bourgeois Media and Consulting, a book publishing consultant where creative inspiration is realized. More at bourgeoismedia.com. Texas Authors Incorporated, in association with the Texas Authors Institute of History and Drop Everything and Read Texas Incorporated, are proud to present the 3rd annual short story contest. Entries can be submitted between March 1st through July 31st. Winners are published in an anthology that helps raise money for the Dear Texas Literacy Programs, which has helped raise over $15,000 over the past 2 years. To learn more on how to enter the contest, go to ebg247.com or txshorts.com. Contest is available only to residents of Texas. Welcome to Dear Texas Radio, where we encourage Texans to drop everything and read. Your hostess for today's show is Denise Bryson.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Dear Texas Radio Show. And we are here in the studio with the author, Kenna Sosa, and we welcome everyone back from our break. Now, Kenna, one of the things I wanted to ask you, we were talking about your 2 children's books, we were just discussing them. Well, what helped? I mean, what helped you to determine who you would pick for an illustrator? Because I noticed that you have two different illustrators for both Kinder Transport and for Ray Antonio and Ray Feo. So how did you determine the illustrator?
Oh, well, that is a great question. And, before my first book came out, I wouldn't have known how to answer it. But what I learned along the way is that typically your publisher chooses the illustrator. And some publishers are very, very friendly with the authors to where they give you a say in it. And some don't, and you just are kind of at their mercy. And if that's the case, I'm very fortunate because I think the artwork in both of my books was just beautiful. The third book, I can say with experience, I had a little bit of input with the one that's coming out from River Road Publishing because the publisher has been very, very close in contact with me as far as getting my opinion. So he sent me some websites for a few different people, and we discussed, what they may or may not be the best at. The one he chose is brilliant. The one thing, we've noticed with her, she's excellent with animals, but she's better with animals than people, so we work back and forth with her, and I think it's going to be great. Like I said, I've been very fortunate in that way that I have had a little input because from what I understand from other authors, a lot of times once the publisher has your rights, then you really don't have much say at that point, and, it's very empowering, I guess, and you feel very respected when the publisher, and in this case I have been asked, a couple of ideas each time, when they want to take your opinions into it, because as a librarian I can say, your illustrator really makes or breaks your book when we're talking about picture books, because there are just brilliant stories, and if the cover is not very appealing to the kids, no matter how much you push it, the kid will not choose that book. And there could be books with just fantastic, whimsical covers, and, inside the story is not that great. So, you really want to find an illustrator whose work, whose style, whose perception of your story and interpretation of your story matches yours.
And then who has a great eye for, a great artistry to appeal to the children? Because that, like you said, if the children don't, if it doesn't appeal to them, it could be the best story in the world, but they wouldn't pick it because of just the cover and all the artwork doesn't appeal to them. So I know a lot of people have struggled with, getting illustrators and trying to figure out that part of it when writing a children's book and what to do. Now, what would you tell someone that is would like to write in the genre that you're writing in? What would be some of your advice, and what did you learn? What do you know now that you didn't know when you started out?
Oh my goodness, so much. I thought, as a librarian going into writing for children, that I had a heads up. I had a good start as far as knowing what to do. And when it came down to it, once the book was out, I realized, oh no, I sure don't know what I'm doing. There's so much to learn, and I've tried to do my best to just hit the ground running and look at every possible avenue for how to learn more, how to do more. I would say the most important thing if you are looking to go into writing for children is to understand that it is a labor of love. So you need to be writing because you love to write, not specifically with a goal in mind to publish, because there are wonderful books that never get published and vice versa. In order to get published, the labor part of the labor of love comes into play because you really, really have to do your homework, and that's the part that's not always as enjoyable. You need to go to the bookstore. You need to see what publishers are publishing the types of things that you're writing so that you know who to submit to. You need to see if there are not already books about what you've written about so that you know the market is not saturated with that topic. You need to take a look at the styles and the number of words and the word count. That's really hard for a lot of us. I was an English major. I love to describe. I love to give details. But really, with children's books, you have to know how to really edit that down, how to trim the fat, so to speak,
yes.
and get it down to the action,
yes.
Showing, not telling, and that's really hard for a lot of us, myself included. But you need to to get into it, you need to understand that all of that footwork is part of the process, and you have to put as much effort into the footwork, into the legwork of getting published as you do in writing your actual story. The rest is presenting. I've been asked to write marketing plans. I've had to write, I don't know how many letters introducing myself to different people, Barnes & Noble, CRMs, just festivals. There's been so much writing involved that wasn't writing the story. It almost seems like, your story in a way takes a back seat. You really, really have to school yourself and learn about marketing and the industry of publishing itself. That will give you the best chance. And you have to make sure that you follow submission guidelines. That's the quickest way to get your work thrown in the slush pile, is by not adhering to what they're asking for. Because if we're being professional writers, we have to show that we're willing to cooperate and to give the publisher what they're asking for. Yeah. So first, express your love for writing, and after that, be prepared to do your part of the labor of writing.
Now let's go back. I want to talk some more about your new book coming out, and then we'll touch a little bit on your book about Mexico. Let me get the title right. 101 Mexico City Travel Tips. And so we want to talk a little bit about that as well, but I want to touch some more on your new book that's coming out, so we make sure people are listening to that. And then we will end up with letting people know where they can buy your books and things like that. So could you talk about your new book a little bit more?
Sure. As I mentioned before, it's a story of a boy who wants to be unhuggable. He's kind of upset. He's having a hard time, and he just doesn't want to be hugged. And his mother, being, playful and fun and creative, isn't willing to let up. So he, in a way, he's telling her, I'm not going to let you hug me. I'm going to be mean like a bull. And so she's going to take the bull by the horns and hug him anyway and love him anyway, even when he's difficult. And so he's, transforming his feelings into all these different animals. And the mom, through loving him and her creativity, she's going to go ahead and love him around all of these difficulties. And I just think it's a beautiful story about how when you love somebody, no matter when they're acting like a bull, when they're hiding from you like a little armadillo, or, when they're wrapped around you like a snake, you're still going to love them anyway. And they'll always be huggable to you. So I can't wait to hug people reading this book. I'm just ready for that. It'll be out. Yes, and Alexis Broad, she's the illustrator. She's still applying color to the work, but from the sketches I've seen, I just think it's going to be so incredible. I can't wait for this one. It's the beginning of October. It's coming out through River Road Publishing. And the title we have now is still Unhuggable. It could possibly be out with The Unhuggable Kid. We're still finalizing that just a little bit.
Okay. Now, could you tell us a little bit about 101 Mexico City Travel Tips? And we got about 4 minutes left, and so then we got to also get to where everybody can find your books at and how to reach you and where you are on social media and those things. But before we do that, could you tell us about 101 Mexico City Travel Tips?
Sure. That was my first book that was completely mine. I started travel writing, and I had lived for a year in Mexico City on my own, by myself, and there was just so much to know. And when people would find out that I was living down there or that I lived down there, the reaction was always, isn't that dangerous? Why would you do that? And I just thought, no, if you know what you're doing, it's not dangerous to that extent, and there's so much to see and do there. It's a marvelous, wonderful, wonderful place. You'll see, Spanish cathedrals mixed in with modern Mexican buildings, mixed in with, Mayan Aztec ruins in the middle of the same city, sometimes in the same plaza. It's a magical place, and I didn't want people to close the door to it thinking that, there's just too much danger. So I wrote out the tips based on my experience living there, like how to get around, where you can stay, what to eat, what not to do, cultural little clips in there. Just basic ways that you can go down there and make the best of your trip with some of that knowledge that, you know, a lot of us, when we're just being tourists, we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hoping to open the doors culturally to more people getting to know and explore that city.
That's great. Because those are things people really need to know, especially this summer. They're going to be traveling, and I just think that's if you already have some knowledge about where you're going, especially if it's someplace in a foreign country, then you really can get some information and be able to navigate on your trip. Now, tell us where we can find you, and where are you? Where are you on social media, so people can know where to get your books and how to buy them and things like that.
Okay. Well, where to find me? I'm always on the go. The books are all free, available through Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble online. If I'm doing an actual event or appearance, I'll have them on hand at that specific Barnes & Noble store. But no matter what, Barnes & Noble online and Amazon always have all three. Or the other option is directly through me. As I said, I'm from the Dallas area, so I do book signings sometimes at Barnes & Noble. Sometimes I do them at Kroger through the Kroger Authors Program. And I put up notices of where and when I'll be at Kroger and other places on Facebook. It's Facebook/Kenna Sosa Author. I'm always putting different events up of where I'm going to be, what festival I'm going to be at. And everyone's welcome to go there. That's a great place to get hold of me through a message. And I can also send signed copies out direct through me. If anyone wants an autographed copy, they can just send me a message through Facebook about, you know, their address and which book they want. I'm more than willing to accommodate. I want to have books in readers' hands.
And what about, are you also on TexasAuthors.com?
I am not yet, because I very recently found out about you guys through the Kroger Author Program.
Okay.
So that is my next step, believe it or not. Getting back from Chicago, I am on it.
Well, you'll soon be on there.
I am a member of SCBWI, too.
Well, it has been a pleasure. It has been my pleasure to interview you today. Kenna, it's been a great opportunity for me to talk to you today, and a great opportunity for you to be on Dear Texas Radio. We're so excited about you joining Texas Authors, and because you have a lot of, especially with Ray Antonio and Ray Field, so those are based on Texas, and so that's a good opportunity. So make sure you will go out and buy her books. Her book, she's got the one about the little Jewish girl, Helen, and the kinder transport, and that's dealing with the Holocaust time. And just go out and buy it. And then if you're going to Mexico City, you want to get her 101 tips on Mexico City, and then look for her new book that's coming out in October about being unhuggable. And we thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Dear Texas Radio. To learn more about Dear Texas and its literacy programs, please visit their website at deartexas.info. I am Alex Anthony, your announcer. Have a great day.